Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now let's talk about students t-test. Till now we have discussed hypothesis and significance testing. In short, we have a theory that we want to test, so we will form two hypotheses. Our theory will constitute alternative hypothesis and its opposition will make the null hypothesis. Then the experiment will be performed and data will be collected. Data analysis will tell us if we should accept or reject the null hypothesis. Now, obviously, whenever we collect the data from different samples, the data values will differ and therefore the mean will be different as well. But how can we say that the difference in mean is enough to prove or disapprove the theory? So, to avoid any doubts or any errors, we will select an alpha level and compare it with the p value calculated from the data. But how exactly is the data analysis done and how this p value is calculated? There are several statistical tests available which calculate the p-value, among which students t-test is one. How does it work? First, we calculate t-score with the appropriate formula and then compare the p-value corresponding to the t-score to the alpha level. So how t-score is calculated? That depends on how the experiment is planned and the sample is taken. One way is that we take sample from the population and divide it into two groups, where only one group will receive the desired treatment. For example, if I want to know if a diet is reducing the weight or not, then I can make two groups of 10 people each and give the diet to only one group and then compare both the groups. This is also called as independent or two sample t-test. Second way is that we take a sample from the population and collect the data before and after giving the desired treatment. For example, I take 10 people and measure their weights before and after giving them the diet. This is called paired t-test. Third way is that we give the desired treatment to the whole sample and compare the data collected from the known population data. For example, I measure the weight of 10 people after giving them the diet and compare it with the population weight data. This is called as one sample t-test. These are the formula for calculating the t-score in different kind of t-test. Another thing to know is the degrees of freedom. To explain this, let's take a puzzle. If I tell you that tell me two numbers whose sum is 10, then you can give following combinations. But if I say that one of the two numbers is 6, then the second number you can say is 4. There is no other number you can take other than 4. Now we are not free to choose the second number. To put it in another way, I am free only to choose one number and another number will depend on whatever the first number I have chosen. That is what degrees of freedom is. How many numbers are we free to choose? Here, if I have a definite mean or a constant mean and the sample number is 5, then I can choose values of 4 samples freely, whereas the fifth value is dependent on the rest of the values, giving the degrees of freedom as 4. So, in short, the degrees of freedom is sample size minus 1. Instead of using sample size in the formula that I have described before, we can use degrees of freedom. Now, how to compare the t-score p-value with the alpha level? For that, we use t-distribution table. Now, this table is based on degrees of freedom and alpha level. So, instead of figuring out the p-value of the t-score, we find out the t-score with specific degrees of freedom and alpha level. Total degrees of freedom is obtained by summing up the degrees of freedom of each sample. Next, we need to know if this is one-tailed or two-tailed test. If I take the example of diet and weight, then if we are only testing the decrease in weight, then it will be one-tailed test. And if we are testing the effect of diet on weight, whether it is an increase or decrease, then it will be a two-tailed test. So accordingly, I will use the right distribution table based on the type of t-test I am using and based on the fact that if it is a one-tailed or two-tailed test. Now, if the t-score of my data is greater than the t-score corresponding to the alpha level, then it would mean that the p-value will be less than the alpha level. That is, probability of getting the data if the null hypothesis is true is very low, and therefore the null hypothesis will be rejected. And if the t-score of my data is greater than the t-score corresponding to the alpha level, then it would mean that the p-value will be greater than the alpha level and therefore the null hypothesis will be accepted. Now I'm going to explain further about t-test in the next video. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you learned something from the video, then please like, share and subscribe the channel.